everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's the Two, where it's a show where we review things in the world of television. Most times now we are reviewing shows on an episode-by-episode basis when they're currently on air with a brand new season. Today we are talking about a full season of television in a spoiler-free capacity because I know there's some people that don't do live viewing anymore when it comes to traditional TV watching, which I'm honestly surprised at how later we go in life and how very little the ratings go when it comes to live viewing, because not that many people have cable TV anymore. So kind of cause for concern for me. But anyway, if you're unaware, if you're clicking on this, we are reviewing today the entirety of the first season of Matlock on CBS. For clarification, we are reviewing the reboot of Matlock. The reboot. Well, I don't know what they really call. I'm going to say a reboot. Let's just say that it's a modern take interpretation of the character while still paying homage to the originals back in the olden times, which I am very not surprised by, just the amount of times I've reviewed things in the world of classical revivals, basically speaking. But here we are. Again, this is a spoiler-free review, so you have not seen anything from Matlock. Do not worry. I will not be spoiling anything beyond the first episode. But if you are still not for that, you just want to go into that first episode blind, this is not for you. But other than that, beyond that, we will not be touching about anything of the remaining episodes of the first season, which, come to think of it, is a little bit difficult to do, considering the fact that, I'm going to get to a whole spiel about it. But here we are. For me, I have reviewed the entirety of Matlock's first season since September/October. So it's kind of weird for me to be we're kissing on May. When I'm recording this is the end of April, but it's the beginning of May for me of the current calendar year. And it surprises me of how shockingly I could still be surprised when it comes to television, where we have so much content, and the landscape of TV has changed since, even to when the original variant of this character was airing, let alone even where we were 10 years ago. It has changed so much. There have been so much content, and the fact of the matter is that we've still constantly gotten more and more TV show, whether it is here on standard broadcast, on streaming, or the premium stuff you get on HBO. It's kind of surreal to the fact that, we're still being surprised, even on broadcast television, where for me to go into it, my basic spoiler-free thoughts before we get to anything about the show. I want to say this much. I think Matlock season 1 is the best season of television so far this year, in my opinion, as well as the best new freshman show of this television season, since September all the way to now. It is so hard because for me, I'm a very specific person. I watch so much content. I really do. Even at a given day, I'm juggling between 10 shows. Not watching every episode live every day, but I do have 10 shows that I'm watching at a given month. Whether that is stuff that I'm watching consistently, like Your Last of Us, like in this case, Matlock, Rookie, Suits LA, or the stuff where I'm watching it, like a Family Guy, Grey's Anatomy, stuff like that. Or the stuff that I am watching, but it takes a while for me to go to, like Andor, Invincible. Not to say that any of those shows I mentioned are, comparable to the binge style I do. It is just that that's kind of the way I consume content. So for me, it's a lot going on. And if it's not a review show I'm doing, I'm kind of giving it the undershout, unless it's something that's really great. Where for Matlock, I was very vehemently surprised on, how much it was. Because for me, going into the show, to be point frank, I picked the show because in my history, I've always done shows that have some resonance to me, that has some connection to me. And I've kind of had this very loose saga where, it's characters from the past, whether it was from the 70s, the 80s, even the 90s, and kind of coming back to perform this, a modern day revival. When we originally started with What's in the Two, back all the way in 2019 with Nancy Drew, coming into 2020 with Perry Mason, 2021 with Walker, to now we're Matlock was a very known character. I've known of the character. I've known of the show. My dad watched them when he was a young adult. Now me being the young adult, and then there being a show called Matlock. So for me, it kind of just felt a given to I want to give this a chance. Katie Bates, who I've seen occasionally throughout the landscape of TV, not in your traditional regards, more like, oh, she's in The Office, then she's in Big Bang Theory, she's in a lot of shows I watch, so I know the actress already, so I knew that seeing her on a consistent basis, I knew she has the chops for it. I mean, obviously she's an Academy Award winner, she's done tons of shows, tons of Broadway plays, that she's no stranger to any form of media, so I knew her being involved in this project from a leading capacity, I knew it was going to be somewhat of a enjoyable show. And then for me also, from the Nancy Drew connection I mentioned before, you have Leah Lewis, who I've known her since that show. Her coming here for her sophomore show on network, on television, was, for me, I was intrigued by it. And also you have Jason Riddler, who I loved him as Dipper Pine. So this show had the makings of everything. Like, you know what? Even if the show may be like a walker, where like it may not be perfect every single week, it may not have the greatest story of all time, it will still probably be enjoyable for me to enjoy, because I knew nothing about it, and they kept it so mysterious in the promos. So like, for me, I was like so curious to see, what is this show going to be? How is this show going to hook me in on that first episode? And they did a whole preview in September before they premiered properly in October. I missed the preview. I went total blackout because I wanted to go into the episode as blind as I can. And then when I got to that first episode, and the first thing I immediately saw when they were playing the credits is the name Jenny Snyder or Ehrman, who I known her from Jane the Virgin. Jane the Virgin may not be in my top 10 shows of all time, but it's very high up there as a show that I have a lot of regards for. Again, I'm Latino, so I will always give a lot of more like credence to shows that have some sort of Latinx background. So that being a show, that being an amazingly crafted 5-season, 100-episode show, like that's one of those shows like I really wish I had the modern thinking that I have now. I would have loved to review that show in a more fulfilling capacity than what we talked about briefly. But I knew that show was one of the best I've ever seen in my life. And I was always held up on that. And I was always wondering, when is she going to follow it up? Like, obviously showrunners take time to develop shows. Sometimes it takes them like either the next year or right away. It really kind of depends on what type of creator we're talking about. But the fact of the matter is that, when I saw that name pop up, I knew for an instant, this is going to be something special. And then when we got for the first episode, and the amount, I haven't felt shocked and suspense in broadcast television in a very, very long time. I think the last time I felt it, not like to the same extent, it's more like, maybe The Walking Dead season 7 was probably the last time I felt like, oh my God, what is going to happen? Like, I'm legitimately concerned. And I think that's one of the counterbalances when it comes to me, where I consume so much media that it's so difficult for me to cry. It's so difficult for me to feel tension, to feel suspense. It's so difficult because I already know. I know the tricks. I know the tropes. It's really hard for me to be engaged. Not that I cannot be engaged in the show. It's more like, I become desensitized, that I can't, it's not an on and off switch I can do. It's just like, you really have to point in Transformers Dark of the Moon, from I think his name is Alan Malkovich's character, impress me. You have to impress me. Of course, obviously, I'm one viewer of millions that are watching the show. They don't really care, but the fact of the matter is that I'm still a viewer. I'm still consistently there, and the fact that this show managed to grab me and to keep me on my toes, to keep me like, oh, whoa. Like, almost every single episode in this first season has consistently kept me to that, where I was constantly figuring out, like, I want to know what happened there. And when something was about to go wrong, I'm like, oh shit, here we go. Like, I felt something that I have not felt on regular broadcast television in such a damn long time. And it's so hard to do that on a consistent basis. Obviously, this had an exception where this had much more time in post, much more time to be filmed, because this was caught during the 2023 strike. So this was supposed to be a whole year early, but sadly, because of the strikes, because of just how they were operating their schedule, introducing a new show last minute, which I'm very thankful they didn't get to do. I was grateful they took the time, they took the TLC they needed to develop that first season to the way it is. And what they made was a near masterpiece of a first season. It's by far one of the most best recent shows I've seen in a very long time. I've seen a lot of shows that I have not reviewed on this platform, but regardless, it's so freaking hard to get me hooked. It really is. The last time I felt this invested in a show was probably Heels. That was the last time I really got invested in something on this medium. And with that being said, I'm just enthralled with the fact that we're going to get a season 2, the fact that these characters are now part of the legacy that is Matlock, and the fact that, like, I am so invested, like, I am clamoring for season 2. The moment they drop even a first look into season 2, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be 100% there. Where I have not felt that way in a very long time. I really have not. Because there's a difference between movies and TV, where like movie promotion and television performance are very two different spiel. Where a traditional TV approach would be like, okay, new season's out, boom, can't wait to go see it. Movie is like, it's an event. It's obviously a hyped up moment. The fact that Matlock was gripping and kept you on your toes every single week was amazing, to say the least. It was amazing, and I'm going to give the highest kudos to Jenny and the writing staff for making this show such a draw, such alluring, making it totally accessible, and making it by far just something that, is engageful. And it's very hard to do that, especially now that, and of course people are going to say, oh, what about this show? What about this show? I'm aware. I'm aware every show has its fan base. Every show has its different levels of point. Trust me, I love The Rookie, but it rarely gets me to even to that point. And I know like The Rookie and Matlock are like two completely different beasts, but I'm still saying from the general standpoint, it's very hard to keep me in that suspense mode. It's really hard, especially consistently grabbing it week to week. It is. And this season of television just proved that, damn, Jenny still got it. She's figured it out, and now I can't wait to see what they're gonna do. This first season has been, oh my god, it was amazing from the perspective. And even like even if I want to talk about the story, like just me not knowing anything about it, just again, the premise was not fully revealed until we got to that premiere. We didn't talk about it. We didn't know about it. At least maybe I didn't read the press releases. I wanted to go into the show blind. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm not going to talk about the story into a deeper fashion because, again, it is, focusing on a different Matlock. This one is Madeline Matlock. No real relation to the original Matlock from the original show back in the 80s, but definitely it is something that's still very much, connected in that, the lawyer-esque show, like the trial-by-trial basis, it's always something new each week. Obviously, we have the core main story that I keep hyping about, but we are going into modern-day cases. We are going into, actual very, serious regards at points. And it's, the topics of choice for some of these sensitivities, whether it is, gaslighting, domestic abuse, what was it? What was another one I can vaguely admit to? Industrial malpractice. There was so many that they do that, like, this is stuff that can happen in the real world. And obviously, when it comes to TV show, whether even to a procedure, like, you take it with a grain of salt. Like, obviously some of these things could happen, but not to the extent to the dramatic, flares that, these shows are performing. But even here, they managed to perfectly loop in whatever. And I know I'm probably saying a basic TV show trope, but the fact of, like, certain cases that we're dealing with are tying in directly to what the characters that we need to be focusing on are going through this week. And the fact that it's, it's not only able to give us a very small contained story, but as well as to deliver more with the character, whether that is indirect development, whether that is more close relationship with bonding, it all makes sense as a regard. And, the fact that the matter is that, this could have literally been a case-by-case type of show, and, which is very hard to kind of do in the modern day, where, like, everything's got to have a serialized approach. You got to have, like, some sort of, like, long-running story to kind of connect the dots a little bit. The only time that doesn't have is probably a sitcom, most likely than not. But even here, the fact that they managed to juggle both of them and in such a high regard is really appreciative and really well valued. So now going to the characters, where I'm starting at the bass top. Katie Bates as Madeline Matlock. 100% she earned that Golden Globes nomination. 100%. I'm not even going to front with that. The fact that every episode she's giving it 110% on a television schedule, it is very difficult to consistently have that high bar. You have shows like The Flash where, like, first 2 seasons, freaking perfect. You get to, like, as soon as the show gets later, okay, it starts to become, standardized television. Where we have the story, we have the scripts, we're doing whatever we can to make it all work in a television fashion. Obviously, it's a very different thing because that's a VFX heavy show that I just mentioned. This is not a VFX show, but it's on the same regard where like you have a writer's room, you have a schedule to keep to, you only have so much time to work on the story, and the fact of the matter, it's the same with the actor where like you can't spend too much time on one take. You kind of have to be at a not a machine level, but more like just like at a constant pace. Okay, we got like 20 scenes to shoot in one episode in 9 days. We kind of really need to pick up the pace here. So the fact that here that always every single scene that Katie Bates is in, she manages to give it 110%. And those first episodes, like really delving the line, really getting to the emotions, whether there are episodes where she just is typical Maddie Matlock, just trying to get through the day, having a specific goal in mind to get further into the matters that she's really investigating to, and then on the other spectrum, just being her true self. The amount of like layers that you have to add to here to keep everything consistent, it was just so believable. It really, really was, and I just like she's. At this point, she's for me, next to Betty White, she's definitely the grandma I would have, when it comes to like, of the actress variety. Obviously I love my grandma so much, God rest her soul, but that was still like kind of the poignant of it, where like there were like a lot of moments in this first season where like she really went above and beyond. That, again, you have someone that has so much versatility, that's had so much history in filmmaking and in television, that it's always great to see her chops being utilized here, using all of her skills and ability that she's learned over the past several decades and applying it here. It makes the show better as you saw. Obviously, I've always said this before, the story can be crap, but if the characters are engageful, if they're impactful, if you're really getting behind them each and every week, that's all you really need until you get to that big story beat again. All along, if this was just Katie Bates doing her thing, I would not have any clue. I really, really wouldn't. And she, by far, totally sells the character, especially to what she's trying to perform at the end of the day. The magnitude of, all of her scenes, whether it's big or small, it's felt like, I'm really am into the character. I'm really feeling it. And, again, there's a difference between playing a character and embodying a character. This is one of those cases where, like, she is embodying the character she's creating with Maddie Matlock. And I say that with the utmost regard. Moving into, like, kind of like, the other positions in the field, we have Olympia, who I won't try to give too much away, but it is a feeling I haven't felt since High School Musical, the musical, the series, when I reviewed it, where like I look at the posters, I look at what this premise is, and I have a initial expectations for that character. And the thing I love about it is that when you have expectations for certain characters, and then you watch them and you start to unravel and you get proven wrong, that's the best feeling to have. To the fact of the matter of that, when it comes to Olympia, when you view her for the first time, you view her as a different person. But again, when Maddie being our POV character, our protagonist, we're seeing things through her own eye. We're seeing her perspective as, as she goes along in the story that, again, without giving it too many things away, she kind of has a set path. She only wants to focus on that path and not focusing on anything else. And then when Olympia comes into play, and when we start this, like I said, seeing every episode kind of continue to progressively, watch and, see how the character's doing, as well as from Maddie's perspective of how she's understanding the character, it gives us an understanding of the fact that this is a character that don't judge a book by its cover. Really, really don't. There's so many layers underneath. You don't know a person until you really get to talk to them and really get to figure out what are you up to? What's on your brain? What's on your mind? And, the fact of here where, like, she is that exact example. Where the Olympia that I have the expectation of is not the same person that I see when we reach the end of this first season. And as a result, it's very much as, advantages of the show. Where, like, for me, I think she's, like, the, second billing. For me, obviously, I don't know how the billing works here, but like, who's leading into what position. But, like, she is second billing. She has a lot going on. She does have her own story, and she does have a journey. She does have development. And they cue the story just right for us to kind of really see the impactful points we see in her journey, to the point where, like, we really understand her as a different character than the one we're pitched on when we first start the series. And it's very hard to at times to, like, have a very convincing turn for the audience. It really is, because once you get that first solid impression, it's kind of what it sticks to, and you kind of have to maintain that mold. The fact that there is a slow evolution is noticed and felt, and from that alone, like just Maddie and Olympia's characters alone is enough for the show to progress even further. Then we have Julian, who is played by the very hilarious Jason Ridley. I swear to God, when I first heard his first line in the first episode, I'm like, mother freaking sucker, you are freaking Dipper Pines. I'm like, oh my God, I thought you were just a voice actor. But the fact of the matter is that he transcended. Like, okay, I'm pretty sure he's done other stuff on television. You know, obviously this probably wasn't his first role. But the fact that he got to switch gears a little bit, he really did. Like, you know, again, I never want to typecast someone a lot unless they really don't do anything else. But the fact is, this for me, for a lot of people, probably this is his second major role. Again, I could be completely wrong, but for me, Dipper Pines was his breakout role. But no, but here, no, the fact that he really got to play with emotion, he really got to like show his chops. Because again, for me, you know, I've only seen him from the animated perspective. Like, you know, we got, you know, him to actually, I actually got to see his range. I actually got to see his emotions play out, his you know, his true intents, where like, you know, I was looking at that like he's probably just like one of the like, again, when it comes to Olympia and Julian, which again, they're both married going into like a divorce, but even we get that notification in the first episode. For me, I assume Olympia was the problem and Julian was the same, because, you know, it's Jason Riddler. Who's gonna like think of that as like a bad person? Even, you know, by the time we really get into the story, it's like I'm still even thinking in my head like, there's no way this guy can be it. And I'm like, oh no, like, you know, he has so much range. Like, there's episodes where even I'm genuinely concerned, like, is this guy really a nice guy? I don't know. I mean, yeah, with a lawyer, you kind of have to be a little bit of a cutthroat. But I'm like, when we really got deeper into this character, it's like, oh, okay, I'm really kind of engaged here with him. I really am. And, you know, kudos to him to like really having such a big range with the character, keeping you on your toes. And then, you know, there were a lot of moments where like he kind of played that to his advantage. And, you know, by the end of it, it's like, okay, he's not as picture perfect as the character that I was hoping for and expecting. But regardless of that, you know, it still very much was something that we had to witness as an audience so we can really understand where each of the characters are standing behind here. Because, you know, again, first impressions are important, but it doesn't always define the person forever. It really doesn't. Then you're moving into Leia Lewis's character, Sarah. I will say she is a hard ass. She is an over accomplisher, and she just really wants to, you know, showcase her worth and really make her mark in the legal industry. And which is ironically funny because, like, again, I'm coming from Nancy Drew. That was the last time I seen her character on a live action scale. She's also played Ember in Elemental, which again is another amazing movie. You should go check out. Shameless plug here. We did do a movie review about that over and after the theater, also on ActionX. But regardless of that, you know, on that show, her character of George was actually pivoting to a law career. So the fact that she transitioned all the way to this show was like, it was serendipity. It was like, you know, it was just, that was just so funny, the connection. Whether that was purposeful or not, because again, it was two different showrunners, two different fields. It was like, you know, just ironic coincidence, basically speaking. But for here, yeah, no, she is still maintaining a similar hard-ass core. She doesn't want to, like, take shit from everyone. She just has her own way of handling things, and she just wants to prove herself to the top. And then it's the same thing when I spoke about Olympia, like, you never judge a book by its cover, where there's always an element or two that when you really get down into it, it's like, it changes your eye look of the character. Where, like, you know, she has a lot of the same wants like you and me do. She has, you know, in terms of her career, in terms of her romantic life, in terms of her friendship life, you know, there's a lot of things that, you know, she acknowledges to do. And there's always, you know, obviously, you know, the fake walls you put up, or the real walls you put up, because these are the standards that you're trying to reach as a person, and everyone else around it could potentially be that deterrence at the end of the day to it. And that's what I really have to, you know, call out for with Leia, was that, you know, that there were so many episodes that I can mention on top of my head, which I wish I can, but that would easily just put her as, like, you know, that I feel for her, that this is not someone that's just always like that, you know, misunderstood, you know, she's just misunderstood at times. All she wants to do is do her best, and, you know, you feel for her, you really, really do. And I have friends that were in those similar situations, and all they need is like that one friendly hand that to really guide them through. And then you have, like, on the other spectrum, Billy, the other, you know, entry level associate that, you know, that we know that is also just like, I think he's the more standard innocent bunch of the core group, where all he's trying to do is trying to get for the day. He's trying to like, showcase his best, and also trying to be, I guess, the more rational run of the team. I think between the three of them, of him, of Sarah and Matlock, I feel like he has a decent, sense of grounding, because again, when you find out more about his character, it's like, okay, he doesn't come from the same places as most people do, but he still has the same goals in mind. He still has the same energy and the same drive as as anyone else on the firm team. And for me, I just enjoyed him very much. Again, I have a sucker spot for any Latex actors and actresses out there. I really do. He's just one of them, and that there were a couple episodes I can mention where he really, similar to Julian and to Sarah's character, where they showcase range. They really push beyond what was expected of their character, and as a result, it improves the final product. As for me, you never want to keep your audience just like kind of expecting the same old. You want to keep kind of pushing the needle a little bit. So especially the times where like Billy gets pushed into a new level, a new extreme, was something that I was like, okay, no, this was something that had to be stated too, and that kind of worked out with him and Sarah's relationship as friends, to really bringing out the best parts of each other, as well as improving the weak parts of each other, to make for even more better balanced human beings as a regard. So that was just the one thing that I noticed as a friend with that one. And by the end of it, it's like that him and Sarah do make a really badass team, regardless of the time that they kind of are at each other's throat, which I'm like, that was just the amusing part. It really, really was. The last major character, which again, he's not really considered a main character. He's recurring, is on Senior. Senior is by far probably the most enigma character on the show. Where there are times where I really am concerned for this individual, but at the same time, I also laugh at his words. He's got that weird grandpa energy that is not traditional. I'm pretty sure he can be a teddy bear at times, but that sometimes he can be a cutthroat dictator. And he's not even showcasing it. It's like maybe it's just the actors. Even the range he gives the character. It's just like, even the little things he does is like, oh god, he can easily just shift from I'm your best friend to I'm your worst enemy, which I'm just like, damn. The range alone, that was my only regret, was I wish they made him a main. I really did, but obviously for reasons that you will understand when you get to the show, there's a reason why we don't have him each and every week. We have to kind of be selective with our time with him, because at the end of the day, he too is part of the main story in a certain regard, and that we as an audience, we kind of have to be on our toes, and really have to put into question what exactly is what was the main drive here, and him being there kind of stirs the pot a little bit, but not in the way that you were expecting. That really was. But overall speaking, just again, the 19 episodes, technically 18, that they crafted here were amazing. They really, really were. I was very pleased with the final product, and a part of me wishes that we had season 2 tomorrow. That's just how great that first season was. Where it was so thrilling. It was so damn, why are we in a hiatus? I want the next episode now, but I know it takes time, but I'm just really, we have to wait. I'm like, come on, the point of the matter is that this season of television is by far one of the standouts in this television season alone. That I'm hopeful season 2 will pick it up where we left off with terms of quality, but at least here, that they managed to perfectly capture in a new version of a world that we kind of have a minor understanding in, playing with our expectations each and every week, and having characters that continuously surprise us. They continuously make us stop for a second and say, okay, maybe it's not exactly what I was expecting from this character before. And as a result, it very much is something that has to be noted. It really does. And at the end of the day, it's just something that even for me, I'm like, I want to know more about these characters. I really, really do. The story is amazing on its own, but if you have both an amazing story and great characters to follow, you have the making for an impactful show. Which again, with this show in this case, it very much is. It very much, and it kind of makes you wonder, what is next? Really, what is this? Was a very amazing start to the story, and I can't wait to see more. I really can. And this is one of those shows I can't wait to rewatch it again soon, and to be able to get an even more bigger grasp and feeling for it. But with all that being said, I'm giving the season 2 thumbs up. And in my opinion, is it worth the binge? 100% it is. If you have a whole week off, if you're on vacation and you need like a binge, this is the show. These 19 episodes, they sadly do go by a little fast, but they will keep you engaged through and through. It's literally what I wish modern television was more like, where we could tell these longer TV stories and still keep a very consistent, high level of quality. And this show, hopefully, is going to begin a long pattern of that when we do come back to it in season to seasons from now. But again, let me know down below. What did you think of the first season of Matlock? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you love it? Let me know down below. We'd love to hear a comment from you down there. We'd love to have a conversation with you about it. You can catch the first season of Matlock, which is currently only available on Paramount Plus. Most likely it'll be available on home media or some other streaming platform down the road. But for the time being, you can check it out there. If you are going to watch the season after hearing my thoughts about it, we do have an episode-by-episode review series that is already completed, already done. It would be an amazing companion piece for you as you're watching your trek into this brand new corner of the Matlock universe, and hopefully you will stay as engaged as I was. But however, again, this is going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. Like, favorite, share if you want to. Ring that bell and follow us for more if you want to see more from us here on What's the Two. But until then, please stay safe out there, be good to each other, and as always, peace out.